Well, I'm really happy to be here with you also. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you all. And today we're going to be talking about how you can find some fresh perspectives and insights to help you reduce your stress, your anxiety, your overwhelm, and positively impact your life, your business, and your personal well-being. Now, before I do, I'm just curious, has anybody ever felt stressed out? Anyone? Maybe once or twice? Okay. And has that stress ever kept you up at night? Maybe causing aches and pains in your body? Yeah, it happens all the time to us, right? And so um, the thing to remember is um, our body is always talking to us, right? So it's incumbent upon us to always be listening. So I want everyone to just close your eyes for just a minute and take a deep breath in. So as you breathe in gratitude and you exhale stress from your body, maybe feeling your fingers and toes, noticing any sensations in your body where you might be feeling that stress. And just tune in to the wisdom of your whole body, not just your mind, right? It's easy to get caught in this just operating from our noggin. And so I wanted you to do that because I want you to get present, right? To get back into your body, because today we're going to have a conversation about that. And as we go through, I'll be asking some questions, and sharing is optional, right? You can share your responses or not. That's totally up to you. This is a safe space for all of us. So let's just dive in, shall we? So who here likes to draw? We have any other artists in our midst? You ready? Once. Hey, Colin. Awesome. Fabulous. Well, this is a fun fact. After graduating from college, I moved to France, where I discovered I could draw kind of haphazardly while taking a class at Parsons School of Design. And this little discovery led me to a 10-year career as a graphic designer and creative director in web development. And the funny thing is the day that I had to turn in this project, I thought for sure my teacher was going to kill me because I wasn't quite uh, I wasn't quite done yet. So I was pretty petrified and terrified because she was pretty gruff. And what became of it was this whole drawing of Dizzy Gillespie. And, I didn't just learn how to draw in this photorealistic way one day. It really took me a while to do that. But before I share more about that with you, I'm just curious. How many of you believe, like me, that life is too short to live from a place of fear? Just raise your hands. Yeah, absolutely. Right. And how many of you would agree with me that fear is just a perspective? Yeah. So this fear, this perspective is causing your stress, is causing your anxiety, and it's costing you in time, energy, and peace of mind, right? So can we all agree that maybe there are some benefits perhaps to shifting your perspective so you can reduce your fear, your anxiety, and increase your calm and clarity and confidence? Yeah. Oh, and my kitty's here to join us today. Come on up. He's going to make an appearance perhaps. So, um, so changing your perspective, what could that do to potentially enhance your well-being, to change or positively shift your relationships, to increase your abundance or success? Right? Just imagine what can shift when you're able to do that. So learning how to see is what we're talking about today. It took me a while to learn how to draw this. And it took me a while because I had to learn how to see things differently. And when you stop looking through the lens of your past assumptions and look at what's right in front of you in this present moment and see things with fresh eyes, it can start to have a powerful impact. So this is one of my favorite quotes. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. I remember first reading this on the back cover of a book of Wayne Dyer at the Barnes and Noble bookstore in Berkeley, California, on Shattuck Avenue, right? And it really created a whole visceral reaction for me, because in that moment, the blinders of my own perspective opened up just a little bit more. It had never occurred to me that this was possible, right? And so if we can agree that perspectives and mindsets are the things that we carry throughout our life with us that create our reality, and that these perspectives are all based on your history, right? So every time your dignity, your inherent value and worth gets violated by someone at some level, mental, emotional, even physical harm, each violation creates another
Oh, come
barrier.
on. What the hell's going on here?
Oh, somebody needs to mute themselves. Thank you. So each violation actually creates these barriers to connection because we're just trying to keep ourselves safe, right? And that need to keep ourselves safe is what impacts your present reality and your future reality. The challenge is when you're caught in your history, spinning around in those past fears or failures and self-doubts caused by these violations, it can create an excessive amount of anxiety, of stress, perfectionism, even the dreaded imposter syndrome. Dun, dun, dun. But it's good to know that you're not alone, because nearly 3 in 5 people in the workplace suffer from imposter syndrome. And Psychology Today tells us that 7 out of 10 adults have experienced it in their lifetime. And what I've learned is, and through my own research, that just since 2020, 87% of people have experienced anxiety and overwhelm since the pandemic. And I think it was 72% have experienced imposter syndrome, right? So these numbers tell us that we're in the middle of a health crisis, a mental health crisis. And all of this is just a persistent belief, a running dialogue in your mind that says, well, who am I? Do I know enough? Am I being enough? Do I have all the answers? Maybe it's creating a deeper sense of self-doubt that's holding you back from fully realizing all of your goals, all of your dreams, all of who you authentically are in the world. And I get that. You see, in my former life, as I mentioned, I had a career in high tech as a graphic designer and creative director, and I got bullied out of my job. It was terrible. It created a massive case of corporate PTSD. I was terrified to hand my resume to anyone. And the day I got let go, to make things even worse, I remember calling my mom to tell her about my bad day, only to find out that a very dear friend of the family was dying. And he was dying because he chose not to take the care that would have prolonged his life. You see, he was a very closeted gay man in a very small town. And he was so ashamed of being who he authentically was, he allowed himself to die. And just a few days later, he died. And I had decided that that was going to be the first day of the rest of my life. I was going to figure out what I was going to do and get on with doing it, only to find out that morning that my friend Al had died. And I realized that life was too short to live from a place of fear. So I made a promise to myself and to my sweet friend and spirit above that I couldn't live from a place of fear. So I had to put my big girl panties on and figure out what I was going to do and get on with doing it, right? Now, all of that was actually a blessing in disguise because it led me to my life's work as a coach and hypnotherapist. And in my work, I'm able to help people improve communications, eliminate workplace bullying, and help create psychological safety, both individually and for teams. You see, my mission is to provide masterful coaching and training that helps create social, emotional healing and well-being through acceptance, belonging, and connection with yourself and with others, all to help cultivate dignity in the workplace so people can authentically thrive. They can be who they are, right? To bring all of their joy, their gifts, their talents to the world. And I do this by helping people release their subconscious fears, to find their authentic voice, and to live their best life without apology, right? Now, back to this image, right? As I mentioned, I didn't just pick up a pencil and start drawing it this way. I literally had to rethink how to see what was actually in front of me and overcome my fear of the dreaded blank piece of paper. If anyone, as an artist, you know how terrifying that can be. Like when I paint now, I paint the whole canvas gold before I start because it helps eliminate the fear of that white paper. It's a little psychological trick, I know, but it works, right? So in order to create this super detailed pencil drawing, I took it 1 square inch at a time, noticing the lights and the darks of the image, not what I thought it should be. This is not an eye. This is not a nose. This is just shades of light and dark and gray in between. You see, it's our perception that creates our reality. So at first, when I showed this to you at the beginning, you're probably wondering, what the heck is that? Is it a clam? What is that? Some of you might have guessed that it was an upside down eyeball, but maybe you didn't, right? So um, the interesting thing was with this project, when I handed it in, I was only halfway done. I had only gotten to about here. I'd only gotten about to the nose when I handed it in. And my professor looked at it and she's like, not bad. Keep going. I was like, oh, because at that point I had already spent like 20 or 30 hours on this drawing, right? So it took me 40 or 50 hours to complete this. But it, in a good way, it created a sense of, tenacity and perfectionism. But on the opposite side, it created some, maybe a little bit of toxic perfectionism for me as well. I mean, it won first place in the annual portfolio contest, so something I'm really proud of. But the unconscious lesson that I took away from it was that I always have to go way above and beyond to have recognition for my work. That's what created the toxic habit of perfectionism that I got caught in for many, many, many years. Took a long time to undo that. So why is this relevant to the conversation today? Well, I'm curious, how often in conflict are people caught in only seeing a black and white perspective of the situation? Aren't there always shades of gray to be considered? Right. So what I found through my work as a coach and hypnotherapist is that life imitates art. So which is the real cat? Which is your perspective, right? You see, as adults, we have to relearn how to see the world for what it is versus what we want to see, what we're projecting on another person to see, what we want to believe based on our history, our DNA, the environment we grew up in, our own self-beliefs, good, bad, or otherwise. So as we move through life, each day we make choices all the time, good and bad, small and large. I like this, I don't like this, based on the moments where we felt seen, heard, and appreciated. The moments in life where we felt judged or devalued or even degraded in some way also left a mark. ways in which our inherent dignity, the state or quality of being worthy of honor or respect, was violated by another. And these moments of being celebrated or denigrated subconsciously turn into these likes and dislikes, which then become the mental maps, the habits of how we move through the world safely, efficiently, successfully. Right? And all of that is stored in your subconscious mind, which runs 90% of your brain power and helps you to navigate life's trials and tribulations. And yet it's this collection of these lifetime worth of mental maps that is preventing you from seeing what's right in front of you clearly in any given present moment. And perhaps even keeping you from feeling what's happening in the moment. Did any of these ring true for you? Yeah, absolutely. So why is this? Well, because every time your dignity is violated, your mind creates a subconscious barrier to connection to protect you, to keep you safe. You see, I believe we are all born inherently worthy of honor and respect. This is the definition of dignity, right? And then it's in these moments in life where our dignity is violated. That's what creates the conflict, the stress, the dis-ease, because your sense of self-worth has just gotten diminished in some way, perhaps chipped away at little by little. And if you're like me, you've got some old likes and dislikes that are stuck in your subconscious programming, perhaps that are running you a bit ragged. You might not even know they're there. It's just a black pit of discomfort that you can't seem to get at, right? So you get to notice, what are the likes and dislikes that you have, and how are they keep creating blinders in your life? See, the stories we tell ourselves matter because these are the mental maps, the incidents, the accidents, the places where your dignity has been violated, your values have been stepped on throughout your life, that create these blinders, all to keep you safe and keep you from getting hurt again. So my joy in the world is to be a guide to help people move those blinders, those filters, and eliminate the triggers, the pain, the assumptions, the interpretations based on our own life events that unconsciously end up overlaying and projecting on top of what's happening in this moment. Napoleon Hill, the author of Think and Grow Rich, once said, the subconscious mind makes no distinction between constructive and destructive thoughts. It works with the material we feed it. Your subconscious mind will translate into reality a thought driven by fear just as readily as it will translate into reality a thought driven by courage or faith. In other words, you get to choose. We are always at choice, my friends, right? And these mental maps color your world and how you see, react, interpret, and respond to everything that's happening around you, right? And it might even be preventing you from seeing things clearly or even responding to what your body, your intuition is telling you. So then you're no longer actually responding to what's actually in front of you, but instead to that knee-jerk, old, worn-out set of patterns, habits, beliefs, ways of seeing the world that you're projecting onto the current moment or circumstance. Is this making sense? Can you see where your old beliefs are landing in your present moment reality and negatively impacting your communications, your relationships, your success? Yeah. Just get to notice these, right? There's no make wrong here today. It's just noticing for yourself. And yet, it's these old ways of being and seeing the world that previously have kept us safe or hidden away or comfortable, but now are preventing us, blocking us from thriving. It's keeping us stuck inside of that box, creating barriers to our success. Has anybody ever felt that your comfort zone maybe has gotten a little squishy, tight, and uncomfortable? Like I gotta bust out of that? Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can tell you who you can thank. You can thank Amy. Amy is your amygdala. It's the part of your brain that is responsible for the fight, flight, or freeze mechanism. And Amy's sole purpose is to keep you safe. I am secretly a science geek, y'all, and I read stuff about the brain and neuroscience and epigenetics just for fun on the weekend, right? And if your limbic system is caught in that fight or flight or fear place, there's no logic. It literally will hijack your prefrontal cortex. Your thinking rational brain gets pulled offline and you're left in that, what do I do now place, right? But on top of that, there's also generational trauma, emotional residue that's been handed down to you from your mother, your grandmother, your great grandmother, literally physically through your DNA, right? The science of epigenetics tells us more and more about this. It's really quite fascinating. So you can start to notice the negative patterns that you have that maybe, just maybe, you inherited, you absorbed from your environment, from your family, right? And I can tell you stories for days about how this impacts my clients, right? It's really quite fascinating. So I just want you to notice, what are the thoughts or beliefs that you are telling yourself that are causing you stress? Is it overwhelm? I'm not doing enough. Relationship challenges? Only things can be different. Perfectionism, guilt, burnout, chronic health issues, business problems. All of these things are impacting your mind, heart, and spirit, your health, and your well-being because of the cascade of chemicals and hormones that are being pumped throughout your body when you're caught in that fight or flight place, right? So what do you do about that, right? So close your eyes for a minute. And I want you to focus on one thing that causes you stress. Is it overwhelm? Is it burnout? Is it business challenges? Is it relationship challenges? Whatever that one thing is that bubbles up to the surface first, I want you to feel the tension in your body when you think about that particular belief or situation. Notice the energy. Notice any emotions that might be coming up for you. There might be a tightness in your chest or abdomen, perhaps in your lower back or your neck. Just focus on that tension. And if you can, tighten it up even more for just a second, holding that tension to the count of 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let it go. Just let it go. As you take a deep breath in and hold it, and then exhale once again. I want you to imagine the exact positive opposite of whatever that thought you were thinking. Imagine how it will feel in your body to be, do, have, or achieve this positive thought instead. How does it feel in your body to think this thought, right? You get to notice that. Notice how much more calm your body is now. Notice where that stress or that tension maybe went away. Great job. Now, if we had more time, I'd take you through a whole exercise around this, right? But you get to know, look how quickly you could change your mind. You change your mind and you change your physiology simply by changing your perspective. That's how powerful you are. That's the power that you hold in your own hand. So you get to notice, how did that tension, that energy shift as you moved your focus from the negative to the positive thoughts, right? It's a very powerful place, our minds, when we know how to use it and not be run by it, right? So imagine what's possible for you if you're able to remove those stressors, the fears, the limiting beliefs altogether from your nervous system at a deeper subconscious level, right? If you're able to release the pain, the trepidation, the preconceived notions about how your life, your relationships, your career are supposed to be based on a set of old, outdated decisions maybe you made a few years ago, maybe even decades ago, simply by changing your perspective about them at that deeper level and actually focus on what you want in your life instead of what you don't want. This is how you learn to master your mindset, enabling you to be present with what is actually showing up in front of you to respond appropriately versus that knee-jerk reaction from a place of fear. What would you experience by being able to do that more easily? Would you have more freedom, more joy, more ease, more happiness, more lightness of being? Yeah. Just notice what's possible for you. The problem lies in the fact that many of these likes, these decision points were made unconsciously years ago or are buried deep within your subconscious mind. And you don't even realize that these decisions are driving your behaviors each and every day. Amy is driving y'all's bus. You got to take back the keys from Amy, right? So with awareness comes understanding, and with understanding comes power. This level of self-awareness, aka emotional intelligence, is what makes a keen competitive advantage in more ways than one, right? Because the more self-aware you are of your own blocks and triggers, the more present you can be to read the verbal and the nonverbal cues of others to respond appropriately versus that unconscious fear-based reaction, which then can easily unconsciously ding the violation of others, right? So learning how to dignify others from a place of clarity, that's what's important. This is a powerful truth that I've learned, that your greatest source of pain is your greatest source of power and purpose. This is the true gift of healing. Like Greg, he came to me filled with anxiety, procrastination, caught in old perspectives that he knew were triggered from his childhood, but he thought, oh, I've handled that. I forgave my mother for that abusive behavior. She's since passed. I'm like, okay. But what he learned through our work together was that anxiety, fear, and self-doubt have deep roots. And that's the joy of my work, is helping you pull out those deep roots and replacing them, literally rewiring your mind, heart, and spirit with new empowering beliefs at a conscious and a subconscious level. So what's the one thing that you want to replace or release from your operating system? How often do we update our phones, right? Well, how often have you updated your own mental mind maps? Maybe you're a little overdue, right? So as you learn to retrain your brain to see new things, you're able to rewire your mind, right? That's why my clients call me the mind detective, because of my ability to quickly get at the root cause of their issues, assisting them and rapidly rewiring their mind, heart, and spirit. Basically, I help you retrain your brain and your body to see things, experience things in new ways with a beginner's mind, right? That's why I call this rapid rewiring, because we take and create change both at a conscious learning level and a subconscious healing level as you rewire your whole nervous system, right? It's a powerful process that creates whole brain transformation. By chance, did you know that everything that's ever happened to you is stored in your subconscious mind, right? You don't always remember it, but it's all in there, right? And so the work that I do helps people access those moments in life where you made those decisions about yourself. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I don't belong. I'm not lovable. Whatever those are for you. And we literally pull them out like a bad weed and replace them with, of course I'm enough. I believe in myself. I'm confident I can do this. And that's how you get from where you are to where you want to be much faster than you would on your own, right? So if you know someone who's struggling with self-doubt or career dissatisfaction, fear of failure, right? Maybe it's feeling unworthy or unloved, or dealing with a lack of motivation, or just rampant limiting beliefs that are holding them back, then I'd love to have a conversation. I'm always happy to have a complimentary consultation that's confidential with anyone, right? And my rapid rewiring process is a beautiful way to tap into your subconscious mind, to eliminate the fear, the self-doubt, and fill that void with new empowering habits, behaviors, and strategies for success. And for those who are interested, I'd love to be your guide every step of the way, right? So remember, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So what perspectives are you ready to change for greater happiness, well-being, and success, to finally achieve the thing you most want in your life, right? You can transform your power into pain, just like Teresa and Russell and Misha have done, releasing anxiety, going from overwhelmed and overworked to being at peace, from hiding out to standing out, from feeling frazzled and anxious to finding their passion and purpose in a way that creates calm and confidence within them. You just get to notice what's the missing in your life and what you want to replace it with. Isn't it time to leave the past in your history book? All the drama, the trauma, just leave it. Just put it down. You no longer need it. Discover how you can step joyfully into your future as your most authentic you yet, and unlock your full confidence and success to become unshakable. Let's connect and see what path of transformation might work best for you, for where you are and the challenges that you are ready to leave in the rearview mirror once and for all. So your next step is simple. You can simply point your camera at the QR code if you want to book a confidential one-to-one call with me. And I'll drop into the chat here in a moment a link to my free ebook on overcoming imposter syndrome, and even another link to my How to Become Unshakable program. So I hope you found this helpful and insightful today. Thank you so much for your time and your attention. And I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. That was wonderful. Now, if I may have the first question,
Yes,
when
ma'am.
people come to you, do they know exactly what's wrong with them or what they need help with? Because I could see someone
Oftentimes,
would say, "This is so good, I want to talk to you," but do they know that there's an issue?
oftentimes, that's a great question. Thank you. Oftentimes, folks come to me. There's some issue that they're dealing with. I'm going to just drop these links here in the chat for you too. Let me just do this one at a time. It's more clear. And the conversation that we have is designed to help get at the deeper understanding of what's really challenged, because oftentimes the thing at the surface level, like, oh, I want to grow my business, or I'm not sleeping well at night, there's another level or two or three below that that is really the cause. And that's what my expertise is really get at those root causes. And then through coaching and hypnotherapy combined together over a period of time, we're able to identify those things and eliminate them and rewire your mind with new empowering beliefs.
Great. Are there any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
Yes, please. I love some questions.
Well, I've got
For
a question
some,
for you.
yeah.
So, you change your mind, change your thinking, change your mind, change your habits, different results. But what would you recommend for solutions for breaking out of your comfort zone?
Ah, that's a great question, Craig. So, your comfort zone is a set of beliefs and habits and patterns that you have, right? And in order to break out of your comfort zone, you have to push yourself a little bit further. You have to go just a little bit more out into the place of, ooh, that feels a little scary, right? That's often that sense of that wobble that's happening is often telling you that you're going in the right direction of expanding your comfort zone, of learning something new and building that muscle, because once you stretch the edges of your comfort zone, it can't go back. Right?
Like,
Yeah.
Now, I don't know, Janice Litvin, are you here? Because you, of course, are the expert on banishing burnout. I wondered if you had a question to see how your work matches Michelle's. Janice, I can't see. All right, maybe you're okay. Well, let's see. Oh, yes, Colin Hussey.
I'm
Hello.
here. Hello, I'm here.
Howdy.
All right, well, Colin first, then you.
Okay.
All right. Well, how do you reconcile like two seemingly opposing desires? Like, for example, on the one hand, yeah, and this is something I've long, been grappling with. On the one hand, I would like to share my ideas. I'd love to be able to better influence, some of the music and culture that's happening, because I'm seeing a lot of banality and mediocrity in the world. But on the other hand, I like my peace and quiet. And it's like, so that you've got the two things. One, the desire for at least some aspect of me to be paid attention to. But on the other hand, the desire to be left alone.
Ah, yes. So I'm guessing that you're a bit of an introvert, Colin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
And
an
so you get
introvert
to,
with extrovert's talents.
yes, I'm an ambivert. I go both ways depending on the situation. See, I love doing this, sitting here talking with y'all, and then I'm really happy to work here from my house all by myself. Right? So to answer your question, um, finding the way that works best for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sharing your creative brilliance and talents and expertise with the world in the way that makes most sense for you. And at the same time, noticing if there's a fear of success, right? This is just as common as fear as failure, right? Well, what if I get really successful? Then I'll lose my peace of mind. I'll lose my anonymity,
I'll
right?
become a
So we
victim
can,
of my success.
yes, yes.
I've seen many a cautionary tale of people becoming victims of their success.
Yeah. And so that doesn't have to be you, but you get to notice the assumptions that you're making about that, right? And as I said earlier, you're always at choice, right? So you get to choose what you want to do each step of the way and how you want that to look, and how you want to put your talents out into the world, right? And so getting at the underbelly of what are the fears there that are shielding you, right? From
Mm-hmm.
actually putting your work out there in a bigger, bolder way would be really helpful.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Janice Litvin.
Okay. Thank you so much, Patricia. First of all, I want to say welcome back to Tony. Hello, Betty, Randall, and of course, Susan. So, Michelle, you probably don't know that I do similar work, but not exactly what I don't go into the deep personal healing that you do, but I speak about burnout and changing the way people react to stress using cognitive behavior therapy. So I know Amy very
Nice.
well. And that's what I talk to groups about. But here's my question for you.
Yeah.
In the workplace, I'm sure there are many people who you can see, you as an intuitive person, or I as an intuitive person can see people suffering, but you can't go up to that person and say, hey, I see you're suffering. You especially if you're not their manager, I see that you sometimes overreact, and you can see clearly that they're operating in their past. What
Yep.
can one do to help other people in the workplace?
Oh, that's a great question, Janice. One of the tools that I love to use to help with that is a tool called Dignify, and I'll drop the link here in the chat as well. And Dignify is a tool that identifies your top 5 dignity traits, what's important to you, and how you want to be treated with greater dignity. It identifies your do's and your don'ts. How do I want to be treated, and how don't I want to be treated?
Mm-hmm.
And understanding the information about yourself is super helpful. But in a team and an organization, it actually gives you a platform to have these conversations where I get to ask you, Janice, tell me about your number 1 dignity trait, and why is that important to you? And it allows this place of psychological safety so that those conversations can be had in a way that doesn't have someone feel like they're being called out or attacked. It's a really powerful tool. If you all want to take it,
Yes.
you can use the code. Code is Nectar. It's really simple. Just go to dignify.com.
That's a brilliant idea, is to do a work together as a team and have each person be working on themselves without saying, hey, I think you need to do some work. Just do everybody as a team. That's very smart. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really beautiful thing too, for people to really get to know each other. I mean, that's the thing that I love about this group, is y'all spend so much time getting to know each other at the beginning of the meeting. And so it's a way to do this inside of organizations that is permitted, it's sanctioned, right? But it doesn't feel all, kumbaya. We're not going to sing songs together. It's not that. But it is a great way to help people understand where the other people are coming from and how to speak into their listening in an effective way so their dignity doesn't get violated.
Thank you, Janice. Susan Rowan.
Well, it's a question within a comment. Some of us, maybe it's only moi, remember the book, The Imposter Syndrome, based on some research that was done in the 90s. It went away, but somebody gave a talk and used the term, and now it's, as Susan Rowan says, the gluten-free of psychological commentary. But we forget that self-doubt is normal. Self-doubt isn't crushing.
Yes.
But yet you have people who stand on stages with, well, I have imposter syndrome. Are you kidding me? You are the blah, 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 blah. I'm afraid that people are using that term to, I guess, look like they're vulnerable, and maybe they have self-doubt. But I'm afraid we have confused what's normal with a bromide, imposter syndrome, to kind of look like we're like other people. And I'm sorry to say it's as overused as the gluten-free. When can you discern who really has normal self-doubt and really has the imposter syndrome? And how do you then handle that?
That's a great question and comment, and I sincerely appreciate that, Susan. I tell folks, imposter syndrome is this politically correct term that we throw around, right? As you said, like, oh, I want to be vulnerable in this moment, but it's a very surface level label. What I found through my research is you're absolutely right. It is actually all about self-doubt. And I've identified 5 different types of self-doubt. There's the procrastinating perfectionist, the fearful follower, the reluctant resistor, the anxious avoider, and the shapeshifter. And these are different levels of self-doubt that become debilitating, right? So I qualified this as, yes, we all have self-doubts, right? If y'all took my self-doubt quiz, you'd find your number one that drives your bus more often than not. But we're impacted by all 5 of these in different ways. It's just how long do you stay in that place, and how much is it causing you to shrink back and hide out? That's when imposter syndrome becomes debilitating, and gets in your way. When I got bullied out of my career, I was frozen. I didn't know what to do or how to respond. And I had a whole big conversation in my head of like, who am I? And I don't know what I'm talking about. And even though I had, a decade of experience. So at that point in time, so there's different levels of it. And that's why I always have a confidential discovery call with folks to find out what is it that someone is really dealing with, so I can see how I can be of greatest service. And if I'm not the right person, then I recommend them to other people, right? Whether it's a therapist or whatever is necessary, depending on what they're presenting to me with.
I want to ask you a favor. I don't know if I'm not good at doing this technical, but your next steps graphic is up, but I can't see any of the Zoom. Is there a way to take that down so we could interact with? Great.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Then I can see you and beautiful piece of art.
I can see all y'all, so I figured everybody else could see me too. Sorry. My apologies. Yeah. Whoops, you're muted.
That's it. I was trying to be well behaved and mute myself and got carried away. Do we have any other specific questions why we have Michele with us? Good. Well, if I may, it's like Rowan, a question and a comment. I grew up in a small town in England in a decade where nobody expected anything of women. And I had a brilliant brother, and I wasn't brilliant. I was okay, but I wasn't brilliant. But I believe leaving home and moving 6,000 miles away from home at age 20 allowed me to become who I was more than if I'd stayed home. Because in Wimborne, you would have always been Arthur Fripp's daughter, Edith Fripp's daughter, Robert Fripp's sister. So that might be dramatic, but would you ever say to people, leave your family and move?
Oh, I love that story because when I graduated from college, Fripp, I moved to France. Because I grew up in a family business, and my mom and my dad and my brother and my sister all worked together. And the thought of being under all 4 of their thumbs was like, oh, hell no, I'm not doing that. I'm like, oh, I think I'm going to go back to France and be an au pair. Okay, I'm leaving. Bye. Right. So would I tell you to leave your family? Not necessarily, but we would explore a conversation to see what's the best choice for you based on what your heart's desires are after we move the fear conversation out of the way. Because everybody's life is unique and everyone's path is different, right? There's a reason that I live on the other side of the country from my family.
I had
a wonderful,
I had a wonderful family. It's just at the time they didn't expect much of me. Just do your best. But they were surprised when I did well.
Absolutely.
Good. Okay.
Good on you.
Yeah. So any other questions?
I just want to,
yes.
Michele, you made said a few phrases that I thought they're very impactful, but I wanted to reiterate that this is something that I would use as the title for something: master your mindset. You said it, but it's melodic line. It's repeats. It's alliterative, but I wanted to just signal that for you. And then the 3 P's you mentioned: pain, power, and purpose. Those are really, a different way than PvP. But I mean, those 3 items, as you mentioned it, could be emphasized. They were very, I just thought they kind of brought into my brain. And you even said, I love the Amy, because that's surely shorter than amygdala. I have to say, you talked about the unconscious. Well, as we had our little wine country non-wine weekend, so many of us eat unconsciously.
Yes.
That I just saw that as, oh my God, the food's there, so you should be eating. I thought that has another aspect of the mindset of, how do I control what I eat? Unconsciously, we put food in our mouths. If it's anyway, I think you had some really wonderful points, and I just thought power of perspective. I just talked about it with our friend Barry Wishner, because we have a friend who's had a terrible surgery. She has been mending. And when I was with Patricia, I lost a set of keys that had like the really expensive key for the Kia on it. And maybe this comes with age. And I know I'm older than all of you here. Fripp is a few months older.
And Randall just celebrated his 80th birthday.
Oh, good. We like you better than you are the oldest person here. I do think with age comes some perspective, but having friends that this friend in Israel just had a brain cancer operation, and he's 34 with 2 little girls. I think perspective is really so important. I said to our friend yesterday, I lost my keys. And I did say the whole word, but I did say to him, BFD, I lost my keys. I didn't have brain surgery. I'm not sitting in a rehab because of some botched knee surgery. And I think that whole thing, if you can continue to emphasize that with people, but there's another part to that. Just because my friend had brain surgery does not make the fact that I slipped and fell and hurt myself and twisted an ache. It doesn't make my issue go away. It just gives perspective.
Of course.
So I would like you to talk about, how do we maintain our own, yet be aware?
No, that's a great point. I mean, the day that I got laid off from my job, I went home crying, called my mom. She's like, I'm sorry you lost your job. Oh, by the way, our friend Al is dying. And in that moment, my perspective immediately changed. I was like, so what? I lost my job. My friend is dying. It was very sobering. It was a very, very catalytic moment in my life. I will never, ever forget it. Right. And so just recognizing that there's always another perspective to be had, right? I have this beautiful crystal on my desk that has all these different facets, right? And it's here to remind me there's always a different facet to be seen in any situation, right? So get curious about what's working, what's not working. Get curious about what's happening over there with the other person. They may be in a bad mood and it probably has nothing to do with you, right? So just being able to keep that broader perspective is really, really powerful, and will help keep your anxiety much lower as well. I hope that helped.
Good. Randall Reader will remember Larry Wilson, and Larry Wilson, great trainer, used to say, when you look at it, most of what we consider is a challenge is a minor inconvenience. When you look over the span, a minor inconvenience. And Janice, you have your hand up. You have the last question or comment before we thank Michele again.
Thank you, Patricia. I was going to respond to something you said, Patricia, which is, I also left my home in Houston to get away from my family, though I love them very much. I agree they had passive aggressive ways of putting me down, but you can take the person out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the person. There was still a lot of personal work I had to do. 8 years of Jungian therapy plus some. And no matter, and I agree, leaving is one step, but the mental has to be worked on as well, at least in my case.
Oh, I totally agree with you, Janice. You know, it wasn't until I moved here to the Bay Area, quite frankly, in my 30s, that I realized, oh, there's some work here that I need to do. I didn't know what I didn't know about personal development at all until I stumbled my way into coaching. And then I was like, oh, okay, now I'm starting to understand these things, right? So it is taking time to look inward and see the places where you feel stuck, where you feel uncomfortable, right? Where that comfort zone is getting very squishy and tight. Those are the places your intuition is pointing you to look so you can stretch and grow, because your spirit is calling you to be something more expansive than you are already.
Beautifully
And
put.
that was a wonderful presentation. I have one question of Pete Ratter. If you think back to the early days of the Golden Gate Breakfast Club before you let women in, do you think you would have been having conversations like this?
Probably not, actually. No.
Well, thank you for expanding your mind and your heart, Pete, and allowing the other half come in and join the conversation.
Thank you, Michele.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for accepting our invitation. And as always, we appreciate the camaraderie of the Golden Gate Breakfast Club. Gary had to leave, but I'm sure you'll agree he did a great job introducing everyone. Pete, thank you for your continued loyalty, writing up the newsletters. And we appreciate speakers like Randall and Tim, who spoke to us and stuck around forever. So we will see you next week. And Carl Walsh will be the meeting moderator, and I will be tuning in from my patio in Las Vegas. Oh, no, actually, no, I'll be here and then fly to Las Vegas. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
again,
everyone, for
Michele.
having me. My sincere
Thanks,
pleasure. Have a
Michele.
blessed day. Bye
Bye.
for now.